Welcome back, gentlemen. We are moving on to the human reproductive system, beginning today with the male reproductive system. We're going to go through this unit very, very quickly. It's basically going to be 3 days of information followed by a longer quiz. So you're not going to have a full test on this unit. It's just going to be a longer quiz because we still need to get through reproduction and evolution. So we're going to be going through the rest of this really, really quick, okay? So today is just the male reproductive system. So we start with the formation of sperm. Hopefully you guys know that sperm formation starts at puberty. When your body goes through puberty, testosterone begins to get into higher levels of production coming from the testes. So the actual hormone testosterone is coming from the testes. The testes are the sexual organ, not the penis, okay? The testes are the sex organs, just to make that clear, not the penis. All right, so sperm cells are also made in the testes, which makes sense because testosterone, it's coming from the testes. Testosterone is what causes the sperm formation, so it doesn't have to travel very far, it's right there. They're very, very, very small, particularly in relation to the ovum. The egg cell is much, much, much larger than sperm cells. Sperm cells are tiny in comparison. Why? Well, you can store a lot of them in a very limited space, and their only function is to get the genetic material, get the DNA within that sperm cell to the egg cell in order to fertilize the egg. Well, how does it do that? It has to go through the female reproductive system. The sperm essentially has to swim upstream through the female reproductive system to reach the egg in order to fertilize it. Well, smaller things are going to provide less resistance, so them being as small as possible makes it easier for the sperm to actually reach the egg. So here is the picture's a little distorted, but it'll look better in your note packet. This part right here is the head, which has the nucleus. Let me just change that to a different color. Blue on blue probably doesn't work very well. It's the nucleus where it's holding the DNA. So we've talked several times already this year about how egg cells and sperm cells each contain 23 chromosomes. 23 chromosomes come from mom, 23 chromosomes come from dad. That is where those chromosomes are stored in the head or the nucleus of the sperm cell. This layer in front of the nucleus is called the acrosome. It's enzymes essentially to get through the protective coating, the nutrient lining surrounding the egg, okay? So those enzymes are activated as the sperm is swimming towards the egg, and they're designed to eat through the protective coating in order to make it possible for one of the sperm to actually enter into the egg cell. Mitochondria, midpiece, that's here. We all know by now that the mitochondria is responsible for making energy. That's what it's for. The tons of mitochondria in the midpiece provide energy for the flagellum or tail to move. So this energy coming from here in the midpiece causes the tail to whip back and forth, allowing the sperm cell to actually swim. Note that there's very limited structures here, okay? It's as simple as possible. Every single structure, so there's 4 parts of the sperm, every single structure has a very specific role in getting the sperm to the egg, because that's the only thing the sperm has to do. Get the DNA inside in this nucleus, get that to the egg cell. That's the only thing that it has to do. Inside the testes. So, this outer sac here is the scrotum. The reason the scrotum is outside of your body, so males have a scrotum because the testes actually function best, sperm production functions best at a couple degrees lower than what your actual body temperature is. So we should all know that your body temperature is approximately 98.6 degrees, give or take, a degree or two. Well, the testes, the sperm production actually work better a couple degrees lower than that. So that's why the testes are actually located outside of the male body. The seminiferous tubules inside the testes, so that's these things around the outside here, okay? Seminiferous tubules, they have those diploid cells called germ cells. We've talked about those before, that are going to go through meiosis to produce sperm cells. So one germ cell, again, going back to meiosis, it's going to split twice so that you end up with 4 sperm, all with half the number of chromosomes that you originally started with that germ cell. That's why they're diploid cells. The diploid cells go through meiosis to make haploid cells. And then you have interstitial cells around in this blue area in the background, and that is where the testosterone is made. So testosterone starts being produced during puberty, and that wakes up the seminiferous tubules and causes those diploid germ cells to start going through meiosis to make sperm. Also there, with in the seminiferous tubules, with those sperm cells are what we call Sertoli cells. They're nurturing cells, or nurse cells. Well, what they're there for is to protect the sperm, because as we've talked about before, your body is designed to find things that are not supposed to be there. If something is identified as being different or being foreign, your body can attack it. Well, guess what? These sperm cells are not like your other cells because they only have half the amount of DNA. So your body could actually attack your own sperm cells. So these nurse cells, or Sertoli cells, are there to protect the sperm from your body so that they're not attacked and destroyed. Hormones. LH and FSH, these are the hormones that cause testosterone to start to increase. Both of these, so LH for short, FSH for short, they both come from the pituitary gland, which is in the brain. That is the gland. The pituitary gland is what wakes up at puberty and begins making these hormones, the LH, the luteinizing hormone, and the follicle-stimulating hormone. In a male, that is what causes those hormones, an increase in those hormones is what causes the testes to start releasing more sperm, okay? So these hormones are actually exactly the same. Luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone are actually going to be the exact same hormones that are in females that are released by the pituitary gland. But they have a much different role in females than they do in males. So in males, the pituitary gland wakes up, luteinizing hormone is produced, and that starts the production of testosterone. Follicle-stimulating hormone is produced, and that stimulates the production of sperm and the Sertoli or nurse cells. And basically, those levels just stay high throughout the entire male's life, okay? There's no time, like it might decrease a little bit in old age, but theoretically, a male could father children up until the day he dies. Now, the pathways of sperm. So we've already discussed the sperm is made in those seminiferous tubules in the testes. They are stored in something called the epididymis that is outside the seminiferous tubules, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. When a male ejaculates, there's a pathway they have to take, and along the way, the sperm picks up several fluids that all together make up semen. So I want you to remember that semen and sperm are not the same thing. Semen does not equal sperm. Sperm are just the sex cells, okay? Semen is the fluid that they travel in, and the fluid is there for a very specific reason. Number one, sugary secretions, sugars from the seminal vesicle. So as the sperm passes through the seminal vesicle, they pick up sugary fluids. Why? Why do you need sugar? Mitochondria. The mitochondria needs glucose to break down in order to make energy. So there has to be food there for the mitochondria. The prostate gland is going to produce a basic secretion, so base meaning the opposite of acid, because inside the vagina is acid, and that could actually damage the sperm. So the prostate gland gives you a base to neutralize that acid in order to protect the sperm from the acidic environment of the vagina. Well, why is the vagina acidic? Well, because it's essentially a hole in the female body. So, bacteria and other things could potentially enter the body through those. So that's the female body protecting itself, and the basic secretion is protecting the sperm from that acid environment. Also, the bulbourethral gland, also called the Cowper's gland, also produces a basic solution, but that is to neutralize acid in the urethra, because you should know, gentlemen, that the urethra is not just the tube where ejaculate comes out, but it's also the tube where urine comes out. So urine is acidic, which means that your own body, that part is acidic, and that could potentially damage the sperm as well. Now, also produced are these things called prostaglandins, which is a lipid, going back to organic molecules, again, lipid, that stimulates a uterine contraction. So the uterus, I'm sure you guys have all heard the term having contractions before. When a woman is going into labor, the uterus is a muscle and actually begins to contract like a muscle in order to push the baby out. Well, why would you want to stimulate uterine contraction? Why would you want the muscle in the uterus to contract? Well, because the point of sexual intercourse is to make a baby. It's to fertilize an egg. That's what your body's intended to do. So when a male ejaculates, he has these prostaglandins, these lipids that are going to cause the female's uterus to contract and essentially push the sperm up towards her fallopian tubes, helping in the process of fertilization. So here is your kind of map picture, okay? You've got a side picture. This is a side picture down here. This is a picture more from the front. So going through the entire pathway, testis right here in the scrotum. This part connected to the testis is the epididymis. That's where sperm is stored until ejaculation. That is the thing that contracts. The epididymis is the thing that contracts during ejaculation. It forces the sperm out and into this tube right here that's called the vas deferens. Okay? So this tube, sperm comes up through the vas deferens, around the bladder. That's this. This is the urinary bladder. Here's the seminal vesicles. That's where you get the sugary secretions, sugar for food. And then you've got the prostate gland, and here is the Cowper's gland, giving the sperm those basic solutions to help in the urethra and then in the vagina. And once the sperm passes through the seminal vesicle and the prostate, it's now in the urethra. Now it's full. Now you've got semen and you've got sperm all mixed together, and then that can be ejaculated through the urethra, okay? Same thing, looking at this over here. Seminiferous tubules, sperm is made, stored here in the epididymis, up through the vas deferens, around the back of the bladder. You've got the seminal vesicle is behind the bladder. You can see that here. You've got the prostate, you've got the Cowper's gland, and then it exits here. Now notice that the urethra comes down from the seminal vesicle, and it also comes out of the bladder. So when a male is erect, there's a valve here that will actually stop urination. So you would not be able to urinate and ejaculate at the same time. It just doesn't happen. So sperm is delivered by the penis, which needs to be erect. I just said that. It's caused by the spongy layers in the penis being engorged with blood. That's called and vasodilation is referring to the blood vessels themselves actually becoming dilated or becoming bigger. Now, in an ejaculate, only about 5% of it is sperm, and the rest of it are those fluids that we talked about, the sugary secretions and the acidic or the basic secretions, basic solutions. 5 milliliters of ejaculate contains about 300 to 400 million sperm. Okay, 300 to 400 million. Now, I think we've talked about this in class before, but if you guys don't remember, out of those 300 to 400 million sperm, only about 50 actually make it to an egg, okay? That's almost nothing, okay? It's less, so 300 to 400, that's not 50 million that make it to the egg. It's just about 50, okay? Maybe 50 to 100 sperm actually make it to the egg after being ejaculated, okay? So it's for that reason that any man who has a sperm count in his ejaculate of less than 20 million, that pretty much equals sterility. Because if out of 300 to 400 million, only about 50 to 100 are gonna make it to the egg in order to fertilize, if only 20 million are starting, there's almost zero chance that one of those sperm would ever actually make it to the egg. So that is our first lecture for this unit. Make sure that you complete the male reproductive system worksheet that's posted in Schoology. I will be posting an answer key to that over the weekend. So it's basically going to be like, did you complete it? And then you can check your answers versus my key to see if you did it correctly. And then we will get into the female reproductive system and fertilization and gestation next week.